the one in which there is a tatted up scarecrow. Welcome to Supernatural First Watch Podcast, a rewatch podcast designed to be spoiler-free and enjoyed as if it's your first watch. I'm your host, Kimberly, a self-proclaimed sci-fi and fantasy nerd, and previously on Supernatural, we were left hanging when the boys finally heard from their father with a direct call after seeking out a spirit at an insane asylum. But of course, we're going to stick to our normal format, so we don't check in on the boys first. Instead, we check in on a couple who is in Burkittsville, Indiana, and it was about a year ago. So, the big picture on Scarecrow is that after arguing about the search for their father, Sam and Dean split ways. Sam wants to head back to California, and Dean wants to hunt the mysterious disappearances of couples in Indiana. So let's dive into what really happens in Scarecrow. So it's Burkittsville, Indiana, and it's 1 year ago, and we open up with a couple being profuse in their thanks for all of the nice things this lovely couple has done, and because it's supernatural, we know that this is an indication that something bad is about to happen. And it looks like their car just got fixed, but the car breaks down right by an orchard. And so they go through the orchard trying to find a house to look for help, and they see a really creepy scarecrow, and they keep on going. And immediately in my brain, I had the "if I only had a brain" mantra run through from The Wizard of Oz. Of course, they hear a noise, and they start running. The woman loses her boyfriend, even though they are running right next to each other, and she turns around and, oh look, he's dead, and the scarecrow is off the stand. And then, of course, a shadowy figure closes in on her, she screams, and we cut back to what we really want to know about, which is checking in on the brothers and the conversation with their father. So we reset the scene, the phone rings, Sam picks it up, and it's a super close-up of the bottom of Dad's facial hair, and he's calling to tell them he can't tell them where they are. He's not allowed to reveal where he is, but he is after the thing that killed their mom. And he explains that it's actually a demon. He tells them to stop looking. And he writes down a list of names, telling them that it's not safe. Of course, Sam is the one on the phone and is super stubborn. He doesn't want to hear about another case. He wants to know where their father is, and he really wants to get some answers about his girlfriend's death. To the point where Dean has to take the phone so that he can actually follow their father's instructions, and he notes down all of the names, which are actually 3 couples who've disappeared over the last 3 years on the same day in April. And all that they know is that they were on a road trip. So as they head out, another argument occurs, and Sam decides, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. If Dad's not going to let us find him, then I'm done. And so they actually part ways. And they have this argument, of course, on the side of the road, because that's where they spend a lot of their time. And Sam says happily, yeah, just leave me here. Dean seems reluctant to do so, but he's like, okay, fine. You want to leave? That's your choice. And they part ways. So Dean pulls into Burkittsville, looks at Sam's name, decides not to call it, and he meets a local man who says that he doesn't recognize the photo of the missing couples. We cut back to Sam, who is hitchhiking and actually runs into somebody on the side of the road, and she uses her brain, says she's not going to tell Sam where she's going, even though she very quickly is able to flag somebody down. And he's a little bit miffed that what was a short 3-minute conversation was not enough for her to reveal all of her secrets, and she gets in the van and he continues on his journey. Back in Indiana, Dean is not having any luck with the couple that we saw in the teaser. However, a young woman comes down the stairs and says she actually recognizes the husband because of his tattoo. And they say, oh, yeah, of course, they did stop in. And then, of course, I gave them directions to head back to the highway. So Dean asks for those very same directions. He leaves town and he gets out his handy-dandy EMF meter. And the EMF goes off while he is driving along the road. So he pulls off next to the creepy orchard. And he wanders through and notices the Scarecrow right away. He walks up to it because he decides that the Scarecrow is very, very creepy, even more so than it should be. And something clicks in his brain. He goes a little bit closer, and of course, he notices the tattoo on the arm of the Scarecrow, which is from the missing man. He heads back to town, and the girl continues to be incredibly helpful, and she mentions how wonderful the town is, and people around them are losing their homes and their livelihood, but this town seems to be blessed. Of course, that pings something in Dean's brain, but before we can continue, we head back to a bus depot, where Sam has somehow managed to make it. It's not clear if he walked or did manage to find his own ride. At the bus depot, he comes across the same girl he saw on the side of the road. In a crowded bus station, she's a little bit more likely to speak with him, and he's upset that the next bus out to California doesn't leave until the next day in the evening. So I always have to contemplate then what time of year is it where they are, because it's full daylight. But apparently it's already past 5, I guess, when the bus has left. So he sits down to chat with her. Back in the town, Dean is still trying to get information, and he goes into a cafe and notices a couple enjoying a wonderful meal. And he asks the proprietor for a cup of coffee. But he is getting absolutely no love from the locals, to the point where he tries to speak with the couple. They seem fine until he finds out that the mechanic saved them. They noticed the mechanic told them their brake line was broken. He is fixing it. It's going to take until sundown, and he offers to fix it for them for free. And they say, nope, they'd rather the mechanic do it for him. Of course, my thought initially is, you didn't know anything was wrong, and then somebody told you it was wrong and that it was going to take forever in a town that's clearly not getting a whole bunch of traffic. This guy is being nice somewhat. I'm not sure if I would trust either of these people to say, yes, I actually have something wrong with my brake line and you're welcome to fix it. But I can see the pros and cons to both. He's not getting any love, and while speaking with the couple, he never gets his coffee because the proprietor has called the sheriff on him and decided that he's going to get an escort out of town. So he hops in his car and drives off with the sheriff right behind him to the county line. We get back to the bus depot, and Sam has completely befriended the random chick from the side of the road, which of course in my mind is ringing all kinds of alarm bells because the stories align just a little bit too much. She's got issues with her family. She's not able to live the life that she wants. It's always on their terms. And all I can see is, wow, there's a lot of parallels, which tells me this conversation was curated exactly for Sam. Night has fallen once again, and Dean is on his way back into town while the newest couple are wandering through the orchard and are stalked by the Scarecrow. Of course, he stumbles back upon the orchard just in time to save the couple with a shotgun, who were about to be consumed by the Scarecrow, and now he decides he's going to call Sam because he's got a reason and he needs help. So he connects with Sam and already knows that he's pretty sure it's a pagan god based on the cycle, the couples, and it's a fertility rite. But without research, because he doesn't have his research sidekick, and he's not entirely sure which of the gods it might be. They do a half-assed apology, and Dean admits that Sam needs to do his thing, and he admires him for standing up to their dad, while Dean continues to explore. He meets with a local professor, I'm not entirely sure on how local, and asks for information on the locals and if they have any stories of pagan gods. Of course, they've been in America for a while, so he realizes he needs to ask about where did their ancestors come from, which was Scandinavia. And of course, he's able to pull out the exact book he needs, and he tells Dean exactly what he wants to know, that the story he's sharing is very similar to a Vanir, which the Scandinavians would sacrifice people to. And, of course, he shares, but This is just a story. It's not real. Of course, he says that as Dean continues to read the story, and then he's knocked out by the sheriff because the professor called him. So clearly the professor knows what's what, and it makes me wonder exactly why on earth the professor would actually share as much detail as he did, because it seems they've picked their next victim, and it's going to be Dean. A quick aside here on the props. Obviously, this book is designed to look old. It's got old-style font, and it's oversized with old-style iconography, but the book also looks incredibly new. It's not aged at all, so it makes me wonder exactly when it was made from. Cut to the sheriff standing around in a circle in the rain, discussing what's what, and claiming that the veneer is angry with them, and the sacrifice has to be made. So, of course, they're going to sacrifice the out-of-towners, which apparently includes the helpful girl Emily from the opener, because she is their niece and wasn't actually born in the town. They're so sad they have to do it, but it's the best thing they can do. Cut back to the bus station. Apparently 5 p.m. is full dark, so this just really makes me wonder exactly what time zone this is in and what time of year. But Sam decides he's not going to get on the bus, and Meg really tries to push him. This really raised for me that Meg was a plant, because she's so pushy about him coming in, and how on earth could he go back to his family. But he decides he needs to go back, and we cut to the cellar where Dean is having a short conversation with the girl to realize that she had no idea what was going on. And he asks her if there is any sort of tree that she knows that the locals give a lot of reference to. She mentions there is one, but she's not sure which one it is. And of course, it's pitch black outside, so good luck on them finding it. And then we hear a nice call out to Star Trek from the townspeople that the good of the many outweighs the good of the one. It's daylight again, and they strap Dean and the girl to the tree. And she's hoping for a plan. He claims he's got it, but of course he doesn't have a plan, and it's starting to get dark when Sam arrives and frees them, but not before the Scarecrow is no longer on its perch. They run off through the orchard because they're going to come back in the morning and torch the tree, but the locals intercept them. They are ringed around them with guns and flashlights, but apparently the god has gotten antsy and is no longer willing to wait around, and he kills the aunt and uncle because they're the closest couple and are an actual couple, I assume, unlike Dean and the girl. And in the morning, all three of them come back to the orchard and find the original tree and burn it. Obviously, this year's sacrifices are already dead, but this will prevent future sacrifices. And Emily, the non-local, actually makes sure to help with torching of the tree, and they head back to the bus TiVo to put Emily on it, but they are not going to part ways. We check back in on Meg, who is in yet another car with a trucker. And she mentioned, hey, I want you to pull over. He's got one thing in his mind, but that's not what she's here for. And instead, she pulls out a dagger and nonchalantly slits his throat and takes out a tricked out chalice to gather the blood, in which she has to make a call. She recites some sort of mumbo jumbo and asks why she was ordered to let Sam go. The blood bubbles away inside the chalice, but we don't know what it says, and she just says, yes, yes, Father. So that's a wrap on Scarecrow, and I can't imagine that this was very exciting for people when they first tuned back in after their father reached out at the end of the mid-season finale. I had mentioned in the introduction that I had actually fallen behind on Supernatural. I'd only watched a few episodes, so I did actually end up watching a couple of episodes in a row on the first time through, so I didn't have the long wait. I had a couple episodes on my DVR. But this is a bit of a letdown as an opener back to the main show, I find, simply because I kind of thought we were going to get a little bit more from Dad, and it's just another case. So I gotta wonder, why on earth didn't he just text them like he did in the previous episode with coordinates or with the names, instead of actually giving them a call, other than he wanted them to stop looking, right? But before we dive in deeper, let's go back to the local legend, which is actually from a pagan god and ritual, where the idea is The Vanir gets its energy and will provide for the town from a sacred tree, as long as they keep the god happy. And one way to do that, of course, is to make sacrifices so that they make sure that your fields flower and they're watered and that everyone is provided and taken care of from the Vanir. Of course, I did not do any further research on whether or not this is a true pagan god and ritual, but it seems to be, which is kind of interesting and fun. And for where they are, which is in Indiana, I'm not sure if Indiana has a ton of Scandinavian descents, but I know that Minnesota and the northern areas and the Dakotas had actually a lot of Swedish and Norwegian settlers because it was similar weather. So at least the story is aligned somewhat with the correct location. So that's our local legend. It's a pagan god getting fertility sacrifices to keep things flowering for the town for the year as it goes. In our other supernatural baddies section, we have a Scarecrow, which is the physical manifestation, I assume, of the Vanir, in which the Vanir is able to possess the Scarecrow once a year, and it uses the Scarecrow as the body, of course, of the men. And gotta wonder then, what does the Vanir do with the women? But other than that, Mug is talking to a Meg is talking to a mug of blood, but we don't actually know what that is yet, of course. And their father mentions that he is hunting the thing that killed their mother, and it is a demon. So we encountered a demon in Phantom Traveler. So this is confirmation that what killed Mary, and probably what killed Jessica, I assume, is a demon. But we don't know anything more than that right now. Who are we this week? Sam is himself, because he's traveling the open road, trying to hitchhike, and Dean claims to be a friend of the couple that disappeared, but of course the townspeople are predisposed to not believe any stranger because they don't want their deep dark secret found out. Even though he tries to turn on the charm and chat with both men and women in the town, he's not getting any nibbles. No one is interested in actually sharing information with him, except for the professor, who, as I said, it's a little strange that the professor, who is clearly in on it, actually tells him the entire story, including how to destroy the Vanir. So, how do you kill a god? Well, you kill its source of power, apparently. And so that would be the original tree that was brought by the settlers from Scandinavia. All you have to do is burn it, and that destroys the god's abilities. And of course, that leads to bigger questions and contemplations, such as, well, what happens to the townspeople now that they don't have those protections? Are they about to lose their livelihood? But also, is it okay for the townspeople to sacrifice a random out-of-town couple every year to keep their livelihood? The body count is actually quite high in terms of on-screen and implied on-screen deaths. We have the couple that happened a year ago, but on-screen, that died. Whoever the Scarecrow was from the previous year, obviously, that died. We also have the aunt and uncle who are killed on screen, and we have a random trucker who's murdered, not by a creature, but by what we assume is a girl, so that she can fill her cup with blood to talk to some sort of creature in a silent conversation after an incantation. So, quite high body count on this one. And in technology in the new age, Dean continues to use his handy-dandy EMF reader, which apparently not only senses ghosts, but it can also sense the energy of a god. And he's got his trusty handy-dandy flip phone, but he does actually have more than just Sam and his father's contact information in it, which I found a little bit surprising. We see him go through at least 2 or 3 other names in selecting Sam's name and deciding not to call it. In the family business, this is actually a great episode for a little bit more character development. Of course, not nearly as fulfilling as I had hoped it would be, because I really did think we were going to hear at least a little bit more from Daddy Winchester. But overall, he contacts his son to tell them to stop looking for him, which I find also, from what we've seen of the hunter lifestyle, that's got to be incredibly dangerous to tell people to stop looking for me, because what's going to happen if no one is looking for you, right? The one time Sam and Dean split up by himself, we do wonder if Dean would have made it if Sam had not decided to come back. Sam is also clearly conflicted about the relationship with both his father and his brother. He wants to live his own life, he wants to do his own thing, but he also does want answers, which is a unifying theme between him and his father. So he's mentioned before that his dad was obsessed with hunting down what killed Mom. And now Sam is a little bit obsessed as well with hunting down what killed Mom. The reason he wants to go to California is not to return to Stanford. He wants to go to California because he saw his father was calling from a California area code. Now, one thing to note, this is in the early days of cell phones where people actually got numbers and did not keep them if they moved around. So he's making an assumption that he's calling from a California area. I do believe we see in the video footage that their father is calling from a payphone, but there's no way I would say for Sam to know that per se, unless he's really good at reverse lookup in the early 2000s where you couldn't actually do that kind of thing on the internet. At least I don't believe so. Also, we have an argument between the brothers because Dean believes they should follow their father's directions. He gave them a hunt. It's their duty to fulfill on it. And Sam is pissed off that Dean doesn't seem to want to think for himself, and he doesn't want to follow what his father commands. Sam is also incredibly stubborn and refuses to hand the phone over to Dean so that he can also talk to his father, even though Dean is the one who came looking for Sam because he was worried about their dad. And he immediately starts to argue with their father on the phone, even though they have not spoken in years, about what's going on. He wants answers and he wants them now, while their father is trying to showcase that there is a hunt and that it's super important that they go and look at it, and that he needs to hand over some names. So Sam clearly is antagonistic against their father. If we think back to a few episodes ago where he mentioned he really wanted to find Dad and apologize, and Dean said, within 5 minutes they'd still be at each other's throats. Apparently doesn't even take 5 minutes. It takes about 10 seconds before they're at each other's throats, and I don't think Sam ever does hand over that apology. He's also, connecting with this random chick he found on the side of the road, about how he's got his idea of what an ideal life looks like, and his family does not support him in that. And of course, I think this is the age-old story for a lot of people when they go away to college. They want to get out from their family's influence, or they just kind of want to go on their own path. And of course, if Sam goes on his own path, then it might be deadly, is kind of the takeaway I think we're supposed to get here. But the brothers do have quite the fight, and Dean leaves Sam on the side of the road, but only after Sam insists that Dean drives off. Dean calls him selfish, and Sam insists that, we are going to part ways. So Dean, of course, obviously has some unresolved emotions and thoughts and feelings around Sam going to college. And of course, on Sam choosing to follow the family business or not. However, when they reconnect over phone just to talk about the case, he does say, look, I'm really sorry, you got to do your own thing, and I understand that, but Dean does continue with the case because that's what he's here for. Dean very much is into, I'm hunting so that I can save other people, and it's his duty. And so he's not nearly that conflicted about it as Sam seems to be, but he is glad to have reconnected with Sam in that moment. And of course, that I think is the catalyst for Sam realizing that maybe Dean doesn't want to be doing this on his own, and maybe he shouldn't be, so he wants to help and support him. So once again, the father says, don't look for me, but I'm hunting down what killed your mother, and I'm doing it alone. So I've got to wonder why. Why is he doing it alone? Why is he cutting his sons off? And why did he bother to call? This is my big question. Why did he bother to call this time instead of saying, stop looking for me? Here's 3 names. Go search for them. Clearly, he has communicated at least once or twice over the course of them, quote unquote, looking for their father with, here are the details of the case. Go check it out. So this time it seems just to have a little bit of a blow up between the brothers. But, what prompted him to call this time? I really want to know. And that's, of course, a further question to contemplate. It's trope-tastic. So again, because we know it's kind of the horror/fantasy genre, as I mentioned at the beginning, as soon as I see an effusive couple being so grateful for what they were given, I wonder, okay, what's the catch? And this is an age-old story of human sacrifice for the greater good. And the fact and the idea that transplants into new towns are good enough to be out-of-towners. And that they don't necessarily benefit from the protection of the gods, even if they wander into town and stay there for 5 years in the case of Emily. And of course, the cut shots of the Scarecrow and then the Scarecrow off of its perch. We've seen that kind of stuff before, but overall, this episode does not seem to have a huge amount of tropes in it. However, it is also not that unpredictable. Pretty much every beat in the show, including Sam meeting up with a random person and it not being who she says she is, I did not find any piece of this episode that surprising. And even Sam and Dean parting ways, but then reconnecting just in the nick of time. It's very much a TV thing, but I am a little surprised that the god did take one of its locals who were clearly a part of the process, because based off of the two instances we see, they are the ones who tell the couple that something's wrong with their car and give them the directions direct to where they need to go so that they can be stopped by the orchard. So in conclusion, it's a solid enough episode, but a bit of a letdown, especially as a return from a mid-season finale, I find. The story is not that exciting. It's not that interesting. It is, however, interesting to see Sam and Dean kind of operating individually. However, they don't really have that separate of a storyline because they are still in contact. They're still talking about the case with each other. And of course, Sam does return to Dean. And at the end of the episode, he is back. Right? It doesn't seem like he's going to leave again. So he's back to help Dean and to stay with him, even though he really does still want to find their father. It moves the storyline ahead a little bit with the search for Dad, and that he's telling them to stop looking. But we don't get a lot of progress there. We do get a little bit more about the relationship between the brothers and the fact that both of them kind of resent the fact that Sam left, and Sam wants to do his own thing. But we don't go too deep into it, and they seem to brush it under the rug. It's very clear to me, at least, that they haven't resolved the argument per se, but they just don't really want to get into it right now. And of course, we are introduced to Meg. Don't know if she's going to stay around or not, but I would say yes, just because of the formatting of these types of episodes. And she was clearly highlighted, Sam meets a nice girl on the side of the road. And, in one instance, she's saying things like, you could be a serial killer. I'm not going to tell you where I'm going, which I was like, ooh, hey, she's using her brain. But then, of course, we find out that apparently she has no problem slashing the throats of random truckers who pick her up so that she can talk to her mug of blood. So clearly something is going on in there. And so I'm just going to assume, because she said something along the lines of, well, why did you make me let Sam go? I bet we will see her again. But I don't know what she is, right? Like, what's with this chick who decides that she's going to befriend Sam by refusing to tell him where she's going? But of course, as soon as she showed up again at the bus depot, I thought something was up. So a solid showing, not super exciting, not too much changes other than they've been told to stop searching for their father. And we have been introduced to some person who is looking to connect with Sam for some reason, but we're not really sure why, because we could not hear the other side of the conversation with the mug of blood. So, questions to contemplate for the future. Who is Meg? Will we see her again? And what's with the mug of blood? What did she get told? Who was she talking to? All great questions to wonder. Another contemplation question to ask ourselves is, have Sam and Dean close this riff, or is it going to keep coming up again and again? Why does their father want them to not help out with the search? And who is this creature? What is this creature? What is this demon? And why is it still around after 20 years after killing their mother? And then, of course, I assume killing Jessica as well. But why does their father want to hunt it by himself? Why is it important they stop looking? And how does he get these notions of here's a case, go check it out? Because clearly he left Jericho, California in the pilot, giving them coordinates to another case, even though we have no idea why it led to that. And it was clear that the case had been ongoing for a couple of weeks, actually, before he left that first clue. He's also directed them to a couple of other hunts, obviously. And so I want to know, like, where is he getting his information? Is he both searching for stuff to hand off to his sons and also hunting this demon? And, you know, how much effort is he really putting into it? And why does he not want his sons to help? Remember in the previous episode, he did say that he couldn't meet up with them again until he knew the truth. So I'm still really curious as to what that truth is. And I really do want to know what prompted him to call this time instead of just text. Because clearly things haven't changed. Dean is willing to take his orders. Sam is not. But I don't think calling versus texting has made a difference in that. So what prompted him to decide to make that phone call first? So that's a wrap on this episode of Supernatural Scarecrow, and we'll connect on the road again soon in Faith. You're listening to Supernatural First Watch Podcast. Don't miss out on future episodes. Subscribe to the show in your podcast player of choice, including Apple, Google, Spotify, and YouTube. Got opinions, theories, or comments to share about the road so far? Send in your thoughts at the email in the show notes. Want to help support the podcast, want access to earlier releases of the episodes and some fun deeper dives, then be sure to check us out on Patreon, also in the show notes.